there, doing this lovely Nordic watercolour today. I've got some Winsor & Newton paints and I'm just applying some lines across the page, just letting the colours run into each other using a wet on wet technique, adding some bands of colour on top of the colour underneath while it's still wet, and adding some shapes here just so all the colours run into each other. Applying the paint whilst putting various pressure onto the brush so it gives this sort of squiggle kind of look, and then just adding with the side of the brush these lovely leaf shapes. Some more bands of colour go down the page and layering on top some complementary colours to the bands underneath, just layering up just for a bit of interest. I will be applying some pencils on here and that will offer a little bit more interest also. So just using the side of the brush there and the tip. I've got these pencils which are slightly metallic and I'm using complementary colours again to the watercolour paints, going in and out, and then some shading in the lighter areas. Watercolours can look a little bit flat at times, so you can add all sorts of shapes onto your watercolour bands underneath to just give them that little bit more. It can make them round if you want, so they have shading on the edges, and bring it round, or add some dots, whatever you feel is appropriate. I'm shading here onto the white paper just because I think the white looks harsh against the pink, and then shading round these petal shapes, and just so that they can pop out. You can really see the shapes once you apply this colour round. Just using what I can see, how the watercolour paint, what marks the watercolour paint has left, and using that as my guide. I think that's what I quite like about watercolour paints. They can be quite unpredictable. You're not quite sure what you're going to get, so you lay your paint down and things seem to happen. Some shapes appear, and then I just look at the page and think, right, okay, what can I do with this? And I tend to utilise any of the shapes that have appeared, whether it is on purpose or by mistake. Utilise them to your benefit. If you're new to watercolour, this pattern kind of making really helps you get used to the paints and you don't feel pressurised to get something perfect. It's just about you having a little doodle, a little play, and just seeing what happens. If you doodle with pencils, then they give a real nice soft look to your page. You could doodle with pens and that would give harder lines. So it's really about personal taste. You can mix it up and utilise any combination you like, whether it be crayons, pastels, pencils or pens. Just go with the mood that you feel that your painting is going in. Here I'm using a silver gel pen, just doing some little circles on the darker lines and then enhancing the shapes that were going to be petals. I've decided they're now going to be leaves, so just enhancing them with that silver gel pen. And this is giving it sort of like a frosty kind of look with the silver on the pink, and really does remind me of Nordic jumpers. You know, when you're really cold and you put those lovely warm jumpers on that have got all the patterns on, that's where I've got this idea from. The silver gel pen works best on the darker backgrounds, so concentrating on those to enhance and just adding detail where I feel is needed. And sometimes you will mark your page and you'll think, oh, I can't really see that. It's a little bit subtle, and you might want to make it a little bit darker by doubling up on your lines. You can see here that I've got little round circles. They're sort of like chainmail draped across the page, and you can really see that because of the dark purple underneath. I have made some marks onto the white page, really subtle, but when you move the page you can see those silver marks underneath. Continuing with the mark making, some little squiggly kind of shapes within these circles here, and then some semicircles just underneath. And sometimes you need to stand back and have a look at your painting and see what is needed. Or sometimes you might be just so in the moment and really enjoying your time and just want to continue. I usually find that the state that I get in is the latter, and sometimes I can overwork things. But then I just think to myself, well, what's art all about? Well, I've really enjoyed my time, so I'm quite happy with that. I hope you like this, and if you like this, I hope you consider liking and subscribing. That really helps my channel be seen. If you like or make a comment, it just pushes my videos out to more people who will get an opportunity to have a look at that. And I always really like hearing what you think of the videos, what you're up to, what your thoughts are, what you're going to do. And love to hear about your projects. That would be just brilliant if you would tell me what you're up to, and I will always come back to you. I've done a few of these paintings now and I really like them, so I'm actually going to frame them and put them on a wall. There's 4 of them, including this one, that I really like. So I've got some frames that are the same, and I'm going to put them upon the wall as a set of 4. I have some acrylic ink here and I'm just dabbing some dots onto the page. I just want to add a little bit more interest, and I love acrylic ink. You have to let it dry, but what I tend to like doing is get a pencil and just make that acrylic ink pop out a bit just by colouring around, as you can see here. But you do have to wait until it's dry before you do that. Just enhances it, and it's just an excuse really to do a little bit more doodling. Really, I really don't want this one to come to an end, so just continuing with this. If you have acrylic paints, you could do very similar kind of thing in acrylic paints. The only thing is that acrylic paints won't give you those kind of blooms and little patterns that you can follow. It'd be more of a uniform kind of look, but you could enhance it again with pencils, with pens, crayons, pastels, anything you've got. So it would be similar, but not the same. But it'd be quite interesting to see how those differences work out. I'm starting to like the way this is looking, and I think that I've got quite a lot of patterns on there, and when I'm looking at the page, your eye sort of darts around, which I really like. Just gives a bit more interest, and you just want to get in there and have a look at it. So you can see the light bouncing off the silver gel pen here, and it's really subtle, like I said, but very effective. So I've really loved doing this. I think it's turned out really well, and as I've said previously, I am going to put this on the wall. So thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you again soon.